The Shield just hijacked Raw. No, not the old Shield. The new one. The one Roman Reigns built in the dark. The one that doesn't serve justice, it delivers judgment. And no, they didn't walk through the crowd. They didn't even need the ring. They made their announcement backstage, off camera, off script, and somehow louder than anything that happened in the arena. You heard that right. Shield 2.0 didn't ask for a match. They claimed money in the bank. They're not entering. They're invading. This isn't a comeback. It's a blueprint for destruction. And if you thought the briefcase was the biggest prize? Roman just changed the rules. Let's break down what really happened behind that curtain on Raw. And why no one backstage is sleeping tonight. The Shield just hijacked Raw. No, not the old Shield. The new one. The one Roman Reigns built in the dark. The one that doesn't serve justice, it delivers judgment. That's how it started. No music. No lights. No crowd roaring over the barricades. Just silence. And then tension. The kind of silence that doesn't just make noise, it makes pressure. And Raw didn't even notice it was under siege until the night was over. They didn't walk through the crowd. They didn't raise their fists in unison. They didn't fight for justice. They didn't ask for time. They took it. Backstage. Off camera. Off script. Shield 2.0 didn't return. They emerged. And they didn't just show up. They claimed money in the bank. Not entered. Not challenged. Claimed. And suddenly, every superstar backstage, every producer, every piece of creative, every storyline, none of it mattered anymore. Because something bigger than the match was brewing. Here's what made it terrifying. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't even cinematic. It was real. Unfiltered. Unannounced. While everyone in the arena was distracted by the main event, a fatal four-way with no real stakes, something was happening behind the curtain. Not rehearsed. Not timed. Not lit with stage lights. Just shadows. Voices. Warnings. And somehow, the echo of that moment rang louder than anything that aired on the broadcast. That's not drama. That's disruption. You might remember how the original Shield made their name. Triple powerbombs. Tactical strikes. Arrivals from the crowd like ghosts in riot gear. Back then, it was about correcting wrongs. Balance. Justice. But this new faction? They don't believe in justice. They believe in control. And they didn't bring riot shields. They brought blueprints. Roman Reigns didn't assemble this version in front of us. He didn't give a rallying speech. There was no tribal ceremony. No finger to the sky. No chest-pounding redemption arc. He built this in silence. He built this in exile. He built this when no one was watching. And now? We're all watching. Why money in the bank? Here's the part that changes everything. Shield 2.0 isn't here to climb ladders. They don't want the briefcase. They already own it. That was the statement, clear, direct, and terrifying. They didn't demand a qualifying match. They didn't wait for an opportunity. They skipped the system entirely. That's not confidence. That's conviction. The kind that changes the match, the stakes, and possibly even the company. MITB has always been a wild card, a shortcut to glory. But now? It's bait. And the Shield 2.0 didn't take the bait. They rewired the trap. By midnight, social media had gone nuclear. No clips. No leaks. Just eyewitness accounts. Choppy phone footage. Cryptic tweets from WWE talent. DMs leaking out on Reddit from people who swear they were there and that it was too real. Producers reportedly scrambling to reshuffle creative for MITB. Some talent supposedly walked out of the building early. Others refused interviews. You can't script this kind of fallout. Not when it feels like something unscripted is finally in control. And it wasn't just about the three guys in the shadows. It was about what they said, and what they didn't say. They didn't threaten. They didn't challenge. They informed. That Money in the Bank isn't a match anymore. It's a mission. In this breakdown, we're not just replaying Raw. We're dissecting the autopsy of a show that got hijacked without anyone in the arena even realizing it. We'll show you how Shield 2.0 moved without being seen. What Roman's real endgame could be. Why MITB might never be the same again. What this faction's rise means for WWE, for Raw, and for everyone not named Roman Reigns. And why this isn't just a story. It's a warning. This is more than a return. It's a restructuring of power. And it didn't start in the ring. It started in the shadows. It started like any other episode of Monday Night Raw. Pyro lit the stage. Fans screamed as theme songs echoed through the arena. The camera panned across signs, some homemade and hilarious, others desperate for screen time. The commentary team hit their notes, hyping up the main event, running through storylines, and teasing what might happen later in the night. But none of that mattered. Because something else was unfolding backstage. Something that wasn't in the script. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't teased on Twitter. No digital exclusive. No teaser package. Not even a cryptic QR code. Nothing. While the WWE universe was distracted by the noise, something deliberate happened behind the scenes. It wasn't loud, but it was disruptive. Quiet chaos, the kind that makes the air feel heavier. The kind of moment that doesn't rely on fireworks or camera angles. It relies on presence. 3 men. Dressed in black. Walking with purpose. They didn't burst into the arena. They didn't appear on the stage. They didn't even look at the ring. They didn't have to. Because the real power isn't in the pop. It's in the pause. And every backstage staffer who crossed their path paused. Froze. Looked at the floor. Whispered something under their breath and moved out of the way. There are no photos. No high-definition footage. But there are testimonies. One crew member, speaking anonymously, said they didn't say a word when they walked by. Not at first. But the vibe shifted. It felt like something was about to drop. Another claimed, "I've seen the original Shield walk through Gorilla." That was business. This was war. To be clear, this didn't happen during the first hour of the show. It wasn't near the top of the second hour either. It happened right before the final match. Right when everyone was looking at the ring. The main event? A 4-man exhibition. No title on the line. No meaningful stakes. A match for momentum, maybe, but nothing that would change the hierarchy of Raw. That's probably why the faction chose that moment. Because in their eyes, the match was a distraction. And if the crowd was distracted, if the production truck was locked on hard cams and tight shots, then the moment belonged to them. Sources say it wasn't just a walk-in. It was a statement. A takeover. Quiet and surgical. 2 producers were reportedly called away from Gorilla. Not for a cue or a timing issue. For something urgent. One assistant was overheard saying, "They're here," and then immediately taking off their headset. A few minutes later, WWE's live feed stayed focused on the match in the ring while something unusual happened behind the scenes. Security cameras, which are usually monitored off-site and rarely referenced publicly, were reportedly disabled for 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That's an eternity in live TV. In that window, the 3 men, no official names confirmed, made their presence known. Not through violence. Not through speeches. But through certainty. They entered an unused interview set. One of those generic backstage zones with a black curtain and the red Raw logo behind it. It had been left dark all night. A camera was waiting. Not one of WWE's. A personal DSLR, mounted on a tripod. Battery-powered. No cords. One of the men pressed record. Then Roman Reigns spoke. According to leaks from someone who claimed to witness the recording but wasn't authorized to comment, Roman didn't shout. He didn't bark orders. He simply looked into the lens and said the following. "We're not asking for a match. We're not entering a match. We're taking the show. Starting with Money in the Bank." He didn't name names. He didn't call out rivals. He didn't need to. It wasn't a promo. It was a directive. And when they were done, they didn't wait for applause. They didn't signal production. They left the same way they came in, quietly, intentionally, and together. The recording? No one has seen the full version. Not yet. But snippets surfaced on Twitter 2 hours after Raw went off air. Grainy. Dark. No timestamp. No commentary. Just Roman's voice. Just the words. And that was enough. In the arena, the crowd had no clue. They cheered the finish of the four-man match. The winner celebrated on the turnbuckle. Pyro flared. The show ended with the usual sign-off. But backstage? The tone was different. Producers scrambled. Talent managers whispered to agents. Some superstars left without speaking to media. Others refused interviews altogether. The usual post-show debrief was cut short. There's a reason none of this hit WWE's official YouTube channel. There's a reason no recap article mentioned the moment. Because they weren't in control of it. That's what makes this different. It wasn't a scripted return. It wasn't a shocking debut orchestrated by creative. It was a hijack. Strategic. Controlled. And calculated to happen exactly when everyone else was looking the other way. Even the few who were aware of it in real time weren't sure what to do. One unnamed official was quoted saying, "We thought it was a pre-tape for something down the road. But then we realized, this wasn't scheduled. And it wasn't stopping." By the time the match ended, the faction was gone. No exit caught on camera. No trace left behind. Except for the message. The Shield 2.0 had arrived. Not in the ring. Not on commentary. Not through Titantron vignettes. But backstage. In the shadows. And in total control. That's what happened on Raw. Not what aired. Not what was recapped. What mattered. And now, no one backstage is sleeping easy. Because if that's how they choose to enter, imagine how they choose to strike. They weren't introduced. They weren't named. They weren't even acknowledged on TV. But they were felt. Visibly. Viscerally. You didn't need commentary to know they were different. The energy shifted. The tension grew. The fear was real. So, the obvious question followed immediately after Raw went off the air: who are they? Not what are they? Not what they represent. That came later. Right now, the question everyone is asking: who exactly stepped out of the darkness with Roman Reigns? Who flanked him when he declared that Money in the Bank didn't belong to WWE anymore, but to them? 3 silhouettes. 1 message. 0 answers. But that's where the fear starts. Because this isn't a reunion, it's an evolution. This isn't the Shield rising again. It's the Shield becoming something else. Something more dangerous. Something freed from the rules that shaped it in the first place. Let's rewind. The original Shield had a purpose: justice. They called themselves the Hounds of Justice. They were a response to chaos. A group deployed to restore order, one beatdown at a time. They stormed through the crowd, acted with precision, and were proud to get their hands dirty. Rollins. Ambrose. Reigns. 3 men on equal footing. 3 voices speaking the same language. But that was a different era. Today, there's no talk of justice. No balancing the scales. No moral mission. This new version of the Shield doesn't walk through the crowd. They don't fight from the trenches. They don't operate as equals. They follow one leader. And that leader is Roman Reigns. That's the first thing you need to understand. This isn't a trio. It's a throne, a scepter, and 2 enforcers. So, who are they? Names haven't been confirmed. WWE hasn't released a statement. Commentators didn't speak on it. There was no segment posted to the official YouTube page. Not even a single frame aired on the main show. But speculation has exploded. The internet's best detectives have zoomed in on the shadows. Analyzed builds. Compared gates. Matched voices to past promos. And while nothing is official, the speculation has narrowed to 2 primary suspects, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Let's start with Solo. He's Roman's blood. Not metaphorically, literally. A member of the Anoa'i dynasty. The enforcer of the bloodline. Brutal. Cold. Efficient. Ever since he emerged in NXT and was fast-tracked to the main roster, Solo has never needed a mic to send a message. He just lets his fists do the talking. Sound familiar? Now picture Solo under Roman's control, not as a family member, but as an instrument. Solo is the embodiment of silent violence. A presence. A wall that moves. And if he was standing to Roman's left on Raw, it fits. The only problem? Solo's been seen lately as trying to resist Roman's grip. There's tension within the bloodline. Could Roman have pulled him deeper into the dark, stripping him of any remaining rebellion? Possibly. Or maybe Solo didn't need to be pulled. Maybe he was the first one to kneel. Then there's Jacob Fatu. If you know the name, you know why he's terrifying. If you don't, look him up. The man is a beast. Former MLW World Heavyweight Champion. Agile at 280 pounds. Ferocious. Unpredictable. Think of Umaga with even more acceleration and none of the hesitation. Fatu hasn't debuted in WWE television yet, but insiders have confirmed he's signed. They've been waiting for the right moment. And maybe, just maybe, that moment has arrived. If Fatu was the man on Roman's right, then WWE has just added a nuclear weapon to their arsenal. Unlike Solo, Fatu doesn't just follow orders, he leaves wreckage. He's the kind of presence that can change a match before he even touches anyone. If this is the new lineup, Reigns, Sikoa, Fatu, then you're looking at a faction that isn't a trio. It's a hierarchy. Reigns doesn't need equals anymore. He needs weapons. Silent. Loyal. Ruthless. Solo is the wall. Fatu is the hammer. Roman is the mind behind it all. But what makes this different from the bloodline? Simple. The bloodline was about family. Loyalty. Legacy. This isn't family. This is function. Cold, calculated, tactical violence. And more importantly, purpose. The Shield 2.0 doesn't look to honor a lineage. They don't seek acknowledgement. They don't care about tribal pride. They care about outcomes. Roman has taken everything he learned from his rise to the top, his understanding of influence, manipulation, media control, and applied it to a unit with no weaknesses. The Shield 2.0 isn't built on shared ideals. It's built on hierarchy. It has no flaws because it has no democracy. Roman calls. They answer. The old Shield shared power. This one executes it. And while we haven't heard from the other 2 yet, not a promo, not even a word, the silence is part of the design. The less they say, the more we project onto them. The more dangerous they seem. That's no accident. Even their entrance on Raw, quiet, untelevised, undocumented, was deliberate. You didn't get a loud debut. You got whispers in the locker room. Murmurs backstage. Snippets online. Why? Because Roman doesn't want them famous. He wants them feared. And here's the truly sinister part, Shield 2.0 might not be limited to 3. The original Shield was 3 men. But this version? There's no indication it's closed. It could grow. It could branch. It could absorb. Roman doesn't see factions. He sees tools. He sees roles. And if you're useful, you're in. Already, names are being floated. Young talent in NXT with connections to the family. Free agents Roman respects. Veterans looking for a last great run under a dominant banner. This isn't a group. It's a system. Shield 2.0 is less about members and more about methods. Less about who's in it and more about who's controlled by it. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because while the original Shield fought for justice and the Bloodline fought for legacy, Shield 2.0 fights for control. Over matches. Over moments. Over meaning. Every stare. Every walk. Every backstage whisper is part of the playbook. And no one's reading from it but Roman. So when you ask, who is the Shield 2.0? The answer is simple, it's whoever Roman decides it is. And right now? It's Roman Reigns. It's Solo Sikoa. It's Jacob Fatu. And it's everyone else smart enough to fall in line. This didn't happen overnight. The Roman Reigns we saw on Raw, the silent architect standing behind the message that shook the company, wasn't born from a single betrayal or a fluke of booking. He was built. Over years. Brick by brick. Loss by loss. Victory by manipulation. Layer after layer until the man we once knew as the enforcer of the Shield became something much more dangerous. He became the one who no longer asks for power. He takes it. Roman Reigns has always been a presence. That much hasn't changed. From his first days in the Shield, he stood out. He was the heavy. The closer. The one who didn't need to talk because the threat was enough. And for years, WWE tried to fit him into the mold of a hero. A face of the company. It didn't work. Because that's not who he was. Fans rejected the forced smiles. The corporate catchphrases. The shiny vests and tacked-on promos. He wasn't hated because he was bad. He was hated because he was inauthentic. The real Roman, quiet, intense, hyper-focused, was buried under branding. Then something happened. He stepped away. In 2020, Roman Reigns disappeared for months during the pandemic. No announcements. No interviews. No social media rants. Silence. And when he came back, he didn't ask for approval. He came back with a new title, the Tribal Chief. Not the top babyface. Not the locker room leader. The head of the table. That return wasn't just a rebrand. It was a statement of identity. Roman stopped playing the game and instead rewrote the rules. He began surrounding himself with pawns. Not equals. Not friends. Tools. Allies who helped him maintain dominance. And it worked. He tore through the roster. Smashed through championship records. Ran WWE like a dictator with a microphone and a bloodline. Paul Heyman flanked him with words. The Usos obeyed. The world watched. But here's what most people missed, Roman wasn't trying to build an empire. He was studying how to control one. Every betrayal, every alliance, every manipulation, it was all research. By the time the bloodline started to fracture, Roman had already moved on from it emotionally. He didn't need them anymore. They had served their purpose. They taught him what not to do. The bloodline was about family. That was the flaw. Shield 2.0 has no family. It has function. And at the center of it all is Roman, not as a fighter, but as a strategist. He no longer leads from the front. He commands from the shadows. That moment backstage on Raw? That wasn't a surprise attack. That was a message. And Roman didn't need a ring to say it. He didn't need commentary to echo it. He didn't need a title belt to validate it. He used the setting, the dimly lit backstage zone, to show us where real power now lives. Not in the arena. Not under the lights. Behind the curtain. Behind the scenes. Behind the show itself. Roman has become the architect of judgment. And the blueprint? It's not drawn in championship opportunities or Royal Rumble wins. It's drawn in silence. In control. In fear. Consider what he did on Raw. He didn't return to action. He didn't demand a title shot. He didn't interrupt the match in the ring. He declared ownership of a future event. He didn't say, "We're entering Money in the Bank." He said, "We're taking it." That's not participation. That's occupation. That's war. When Roman was part of the original Shield, he was the force. The final punch. The closer. Now, he's the commander. He doesn't throw punches anymore. He orchestrates chaos. He lets others do the breaking while he does the calculating. And that's far more dangerous. Roman understands something most in this business never learn: violence is just a tool. Real power is influence. And the most effective influence? Fear of the unknown. That's why the Shield 2.0 doesn't speak. That's why they move in silence. That's why nothing was aired, announced, or explained. Roman doesn't want the audience to understand. He wants them to wonder. He's no longer fighting matches. He's fighting narratives. Changing perception. Redefining what control looks like. Most superstars aim to climb the mountain. Roman is planting bombs underneath it. And here's the most important detail: he waited. He didn't jump into this role right after the bloodline. He vanished again. Stayed silent. Let the roster forget about him. Let people wonder where he went. Let time pass. Because he understood one thing better than anyone: you don't build control in the spotlight. You build it in the dark. That's where this new Roman was forged. Quietly. Off camera. Just like the moment on Raw. It wasn't a return. It was a reveal. And that's what makes him terrifying now. He's not playing the game. He's already won it. Every faction has a moment that defines it. The original Shields was their first ambush on Ryback and CM Punk. The bloodlines came when Roman pinned both Bryan and Edge at WrestleMania in one shot. Moments like that stamp intent. They broadcast power. They force everyone watching to ask one question: what does this mean? So why did Shield 2.0 pick Money in the Bank? They could have chosen SummerSlam. It's bigger. Flashier. More historic. They could have chosen Survivor Series, the original home of the Shield's debut. That would have been poetic. They could have attacked someone mid-title match on Raw or SmackDown and left bodies in their wake. But they didn't. They didn't even show up in the ring. They went after the one event in WWE built entirely around opportunity, and they claimed it. That's the first clue. Shield 2.0 doesn't want the prize. They want to control the prize system. Money in the Bank isn't just a briefcase. It's a symbol. It represents disruption. A shortcut to the top. A cheat code baked into the rules. For years, WWE has booked it as the most unpredictable match of the year. Careers have been launched, legacies built, and champions dethroned, all with that single cash-in moment. Edge. Rollins. Ambrose. Miz. Carmella. Theory. Names that went from mid-card to main event with one opportunity. But here's the trick, all of that relies on the assumption that the rules still apply. That the contract gets cashed in fairly. That the person who wins the briefcase climbed a ladder and earned it. Shield 2.0 just set fire to that assumption. By claiming Money in the Bank, they didn't just enter the match, they hijacked the concept. They didn't declare themselves participants. They didn't announce their intention to climb a ladder. They declared war on the match itself. And that should terrify everyone involved. Think about the logistics. MITB usually features 6 to 8 competitors. It's chaos from the bell. Ladders everywhere. No disqualifications. Bodies flying, alliances forming and crumbling by the minute. It's not designed for fairness. It's designed for chaos. And that's exactly where Shield 2.0 thrives. Roman saw something most never noticed: Money in the Bank is the most vulnerable point in WWE's calendar. The entire concept hinges on one thing: order within chaos. A structure, however fragile, that allows someone to rise through madness and come out holding a ticket to the top. But what happens when someone doesn't want to rise? What happens when someone wants to make sure no one else can? Shield 2.0 doesn't need to win MITB. They just need to poison it. Interrupt it. Redefine what it means. What if the briefcase never leaves the hook? What if the match ends with bodies on the floor, lights cut, and the camera focused on 3 men who never even entered officially? What if the entire event ends not with a winner holding the contract, but with Roman holding the show hostage? That's the real play. It's not about the briefcase. It's about the narrative. By targeting MITB, Shield 2.0 sends a message: opportunity isn't earned anymore. It's granted by them, or taken from you. And here's the deeper cut: Roman Reigns knows the power of MITB better than most. It was Seth Rollins, his former brother in the Shield, who first cashed in on him and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. That moment broke Roman's first main event push. Changed his trajectory for years. Haunting. Now Roman is doing the same thing, but smarter. He's not holding the briefcase. He's holding the event. He's not waiting for someone to cash in. He's removing cash-ins from the equation altogether. This is about rewriting what opportunity means in WWE. No longer something to be earned by risk. Now something to be denied by force. Every other faction in history fought for gold. This one fights to control access to it. And think about the timing. Money in the Bank sits at the edge of summer. It's the launchpad for summer storylines, title feuds, championship overhauls. Whoever wins often shapes the next 6 months of programming. If Shield 2.0 takes that piece off the board, the entire game changes. You can't book a cash-in if the match never finishes. You can't promote a winner if the briefcase never makes it to someone's hands. And you can't plan long-term if the match itself is held hostage. That's the genius in Roman's timing. He's not just disrupting a pay-per-view. He's gutting the calendar. He's hacking the infrastructure. Money in the Bank has always lived in the shadow of WrestleMania and SummerSlam. A secondary event with main event consequences. Roman just pushed it into the center spotlight. Not by selling tickets, but by flipping the purpose. This isn't a ladder match anymore. It's a stage for execution. And everyone who steps into that ring now has 2 options: play the match and risk never making it out. Stay backstage and surrender the opportunity entirely. Roman wins either way. If someone fights and fails, Roman proves the system's broken without him. If everyone walks away, Roman proves he's above the system. That's the message behind Shield 2.0's targeting of MITB: opportunity is dead. Judgment is in session. Here's what we know: the most important moment on Raw didn't happen in the ring. It didn't even happen in front of the live audience. It happened somewhere backstage, off the grid, far from the chants and pyros, no spotlight, no fanfare, no commentators trying to make sense of it. And yet, somehow, it changed the entire landscape of WWE in under 10 minutes. Let's start with the facts, what little of them exist. Raw was approaching its final half hour. The arena lights were dimmed slightly as the main event's hype package rolled. Fans were buzzing. The match was set. The night seemed to be building toward a finish we'd seen dozens of times before. Then, backstage, something unusual happened. According to multiple internal sources, none of whom are willing to be named for obvious reasons, a production assistant received a message. Not through headset, not through the show's control panel. A physical note. Hand-delivered by someone described only as a suit who didn't belong. The message? Studio D, 9:33 p.m. No crew. No interference. No one knew what it meant at first. But one producer reportedly recognized the handwriting. It was from Roman Reigns. The note wasn't signed, but it didn't have to be. That's how the backstage moment began. At exactly 9:31 p.m., security cameras monitoring the west corridor of the backstage production area cut out. No known technical issues. No explanation from the broadcast team. Just a feed drop that lasted 7 minutes. Most of the crew didn't notice. Raw was live, the cameras were focused on the ring, the trucks were in go mode, and everyone else was focused on the performers. But in those 7 minutes, the faction now known as Shield 2.0 made their presence felt. They entered through the rear loading dock, an area usually off-limits during live tapings. No entrance music. No camera crew. Just 3 men moving through shadows with no hesitation. They didn't need directions. They knew where they were going. They made their way to Studio D. A black box set used occasionally for social content, usually for digital interviews or unseen promos. That night, it was scheduled to sit dark and empty. But it wasn't empty anymore. A DSLR camera had been set up. Manual. Tripod mounted. Wired to nothing. Just battery powered and focused tightly on the center of the black curtain. They hit record. What followed was under 5 minutes long, but sent shockwaves through the company. Roman stood front and center. No vest. No gloves. No title. Just a black shirt and an unreadable expression. Flanked on either side by his new soldiers, faces partially obscured, identities unconfirmed, but presence undeniable. He didn't yell. He didn't posture. He spoke once. This isn't a return. This is the beginning of something bigger. And money in the bank? It's ours now. No threats. No challenges. Just a statement of intent. The footage never made it to air. Not officially. But that's not how Roman operates anymore. He doesn't need WWE to distribute his message. By 10:15 p.m., less than an hour after the live show ended, a 16-second clip of the footage began circulating on Twitter. It wasn't HD. It wasn't even stabilized. It looked like it had been filmed from a second screen, a monitor playing the footage, recorded with a phone. The internet erupted. Within minutes, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Shield 2.0. Hashtag hijacked Raw. Hashtag Studio D. Every major wrestling journalist began digging for confirmation. WWE? Silent. No tweet. No backstage exclusive. No denial. Just an eerie digital void. But the reaction backstage was much louder. One veteran superstar, speaking anonymously, said this: "We knew something had shifted. It wasn't just another faction. It was something colder. Roman didn't come back for legacy. He came back to erase everything." Another source claimed the guerrilla position was thrown into chaos after the moment. Communications scrambled. Meetings scheduled immediately post-show. Creative staffers asked to stay late. Talent agents started fielding nervous calls from clients wondering what this meant for their MITB bookings. Even security reportedly ran sweeps of the backstage area to make sure the threat was over. But here's the kicker, nothing was physically damaged. No one was attacked. No altercation took place. The only thing Roman destroyed that night was structure. The script. The illusion that anything on Raw was still being controlled by the people writing it. And that's why this moment mattered more than any match. Shield 2.0 didn't beat anyone down. They made WWE admit, without saying a word, that they were no longer in charge. Imagine the impact. Every superstar with a storyline heading into Money in the Bank is now looking over their shoulder. Every writer is being told to rework their plans. Every production meeting now includes a segment titled Shield 2.0 Contingency. Because they didn't show up in the arena. They showed up where power actually lives, behind the scenes. And if you control backstage, you control everything. This wasn't a match. This wasn't a brawl. This was a shift in philosophy. The message was simple, Roman doesn't need a segment to speak. He doesn't need approval to act. He doesn't need to pin anyone to own the show. All he needs is access. He found it. And now? He's not knocking anymore. He's already inside. Before the cameras even cut to black at the end of Raw, the internet was already on fire. No footage. No official graphic. No commentary mention. Nothing on the screen to confirm what just happened. But somehow, everybody knew something had changed. The buzz started small, one or two cryptic tweets from verified wrestling reporters, claiming they'd heard something big was going down backstage. Then came the leaks. 16 seconds of grainy footage. No context. No music. Just Roman Reigns standing beneath a flickering light, delivering a single line. This isn't a return. This is the beginning of something bigger. And Money in the Bank? It's ours now. That clip spread like a virus. Wrestling Twitter, Reddit, Discord servers, every corner of the fandom lit up at once. Threads titled Shield 2.0 is real and Raw was just hijacked hit thousands of upvotes in under an hour. Fans weren't just excited. They were rattled. Confused. Intrigued. And maybe a little afraid. Because nobody knew what it meant. Was this a promo? A leaked teaser? Was it part of the show or something that slipped through the cracks? Was Roman even allowed to film that? The ambiguity was the fuel. People started analyzing every frame. Comparing the shadowed outlines next to Roman. Enlarging the silhouettes. Debating builds, walking styles, even beard patterns. Fans were pulling out old photos of Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, overlaying them on stills from the leaked clip like they were forensics experts solving a crime. Some even began pulling screen grabs from the backstage area of Raw, monitor reflections, background motion and promos earlier that night, looking for any hidden clues. The hashtags #Shield 2.0 and #RomanRAW Takeover trended worldwide. Within 2 hours, they hit over 250,000 tweets combined. But it wasn't just fans talking. WWE superstars began posting cryptic reactions, amplifying the drama. Sami Zayn tweeted a single eye emoji. Kevin Owens tweeted nothing at all, but changed his profile picture to a black square. Seth Rollins posted a throwback image of the original Shield walking through the crowd, with the caption, "You have no idea what you've started." That sent the internet into a frenzy. Was Seth warning them? Was he coming back to stop it? Was he involved? The mystery deepened. Even outside WWE, other wrestlers chimed in. Jon Moxley's name started trending just from speculation. Despite being under contract with AEW, his association with the original Shield brought his name back into the spotlight. Fans imagined cross-promotional invasions, Forbidden Door scenarios, Shield versus Shield showdowns. Fiction? Of course. But the point is, the storyline wasn't just alive. It was out of WWE's hands. And that's when things got really interesting. Because WWE didn't post a recap. They didn't upload the segment to YouTube. They didn't even acknowledge it happened. Which only made fans more certain it was real. Or unsanctioned. Or both. One fan tweet summed up the mood perfectly: Roman didn't hijack Raw on screen. He hijacked it off screen. And that's scarier. The fanbase started theorizing. Writing long-form predictions. Some believed the Shield 2.0 wasn't done with MITB, they believed the briefcase itself would be destroyed. Others predicted a full Raw shutdown. Some said this was Roman's first step toward taking over the company storyline and backstage alike. A new term was coined, the Roman Doctrine. Meaning, take control of opportunity itself, not just outcomes. WWE's own Reddit AMA threads were flooded. Any mention of upcoming creative was instantly challenged. Fans weren't just engaging, they were rebuilding the narrative in real time. YouTube creators rushed to upload videos with titles like, Raw was just hijacked, what is Shield 2.0? Money in the Bank is no longer safe, Roman's true plan explained. WWE has lost control, and that's the best thing to happen in years. Comments under those videos echoed a single sentiment: we haven't felt this kind of energy since CM Punk dropped the pipe bomb. Except this time, it wasn't a promo. It was something else. A moment not built for the cameras, but captured anyway. A wave not manufactured, but real. And that's why the fan response matters so much. Because it wasn't orchestrated. It was organic. It was spontaneous. It was driven by confusion, not clarity. And confusion breeds conversation. People were no longer watching Raw as passive entertainment. They were watching it as investigators, looking for hidden symbols, connections, patterns. Shield 2.0 had created not just a faction, but a mystery. And in today's wrestling world, a mystery moves faster than any booked storyline. The fans didn't just react. They participated. They created fan art of the new Shield in darker gear. They wrote Reddit theories connecting Shield 2.0 to past Roman promos, digging up obscure lines from his feud with Jey Uso, his battle with Cody, even his Survivor Series speech from years ago. They shared screenshots of the glitchy, static-filled camera cut that occurred 43 minutes into Raw, a moment that might have been a coincidence, or might have been Shield 2.0 leaving a trail. This wasn't a segment anymore. This was an ARG disguised as wrestling. And WWE's silence only added fuel. Every hour they didn't post a follow-up, every second they didn't explain the moment, it validated the idea that this was real. That this was a hostile takeover, not a scripted one. And maybe, that's the most genius move Roman Reigns has ever made. He didn't hijack Raw with a chair shot or a title challenge. He hijacked the audience's imagination. And now, they're not just watching. They're chasing. When the show ended and the fans went home, the real fear began. Not among the audience, but behind the scenes, where the air was colder, the silence longer, and the looks exchanged weren't part of any storyline. Because backstage, everyone had the same question in their mind: who's next? Not who's next to wrestle. Not who's next in line for a title. Who's next to get taken out, embarrassed, replaced, erased? The Shield 2.0 didn't debut with violence, but that only made it worse. At least when a superstar throws a punch or swings a chair, you know what they want. With Roman's new faction, no one was touched. No one was warned. But everyone suddenly felt unsafe. That kind of fear spreads fast. Immediately after the segment, if you can even call it that, multiple top-tier stars refused to go back out for post-show dark matches. One source said several talents were visibly shaken, unsure if their current programs were even still in play. Another report noted that the creative team held an emergency meeting in guerrilla to reassess MITB angles and heel-face balances. Translation: the blueprint had been shredded. And at the center of the anxiety was one truth: Shield 2.0 didn't care about rankings. They didn't care about story arcs. They weren't targeting champions, or even challengers. They were targeting certainty itself. Everyone's plans were now in jeopardy. Let's talk specifics. Cody Rhodes was reportedly one of the first names mentioned when discussions backstage turned to potential targets. Why? Because Cody is the face WWE is building around. He's clean-cut, main event material. A born leader. And most dangerously for Roman, he's beloved by fans and seen as an actual threat to power. If Shield 2.0 is trying to destabilize opportunity, Cody is public enemy number one. He represents the one thing Roman hates most, narrative control that isn't his. Then there's Seth Rollins. Former brother. Former betrayer. Former Shield original. Seth's cryptic tweet after the incident on Raw, just a photo of the old Shield with the caption, "You have no idea what you've started," sparked immediate speculation. Is he warning them? Is he involved? Is he trying to bait them? The truth is probably more complicated. Rollins knows Roman better than anyone else in WWE. And he knows exactly how dangerous Roman becomes when he's not chasing gold, but chasing legacy. If Shield 2.0 is the evolution of Roman's vision, Seth might not be a target. He might be an obstacle. Or worse, he might be the plan's final test. But not all the names floating around are main eventers. There's real tension among the mid-card talent, too. Especially those scheduled to appear in the MITB qualifier matches. Suddenly, those matches feel meaningless. Why fight for a chance at a contract that might never leave the hook? That kind of existential doubt poisons morale. One insider said, "Everyone feels like they're in the crosshairs. Even the people who don't matter right now." Because that's the point. Roman's not trying to knock off the top guy. He's trying to make sure no one becomes the top guy. Take LA Knight. A fan favorite, full of momentum and rumored to be a strong MITB contender. But after Shield 2.0's message, his whole push feels fragile. One well-timed ambush, and he's not just out of the match, he's out of the conversation. Same goes for Bronson Reed, Chad Gable, or even Ricochet. Names that had momentum until momentum became meaningless. This isn't just mind games. It's psychological warfare. Even the backstage structure is crumbling. Production assistants reportedly asked for additional security presence during MITB week. Interviewers are being told to avoid unscheduled locker room areas. Some talent have started bringing in personal security, not kayfabe bodyguards, real protection, just in case. And the tension is spreading beyond the locker room. Producers are paranoid. Writers are quiet. Senior officials are worried about whether the MITB match should even continue in its current form. The idea of scrapping the briefcase entirely isn't off the table. Because here's the brutal truth, if Shield 2.0 strikes again, it won't be during a match. It'll be in a hallway. Or in catering. Or while someone's giving a backstage interview and the lights flicker. Roman doesn't need chaos to thrive anymore. He is the chaos. And the scariest part? This doesn't need to be weekly. Shield 2.0 doesn't have to appear every show, or even every month. That's not how this works. Because when you've established that no one is safe, the threat becomes constant. And constant fear is the most efficient way to seize control without even throwing a punch. The locker room knows that now. And everyone is waiting. Watching. Whispering. Because the question is no longer if they'll strike again. It's who's next. By Tuesday morning, Wrestling World was in chaos. Twitter was still melting. Reddit was writing novels. YouTube thumbnails were screaming with fire emojis and breaking, "Roman takes over WWE" headlines. But WWE? WWE said nothing. Not right away. No "What You Missed on Raw" article. No backstage exclusive. No social recap. The digital team, normally the fastest responders in the industry, was dead silent. No tweet. No clip. No teaser. Just nothing. And the silence said everything. Because when a company built on controlling the narrative refuses to acknowledge the loudest thing that happened on its flagship show, it means they're not in charge of it. For about 18 hours, fans were left to interpret the moment on their own. Then, WWE finally broke its silence. Not with a segment. Not with a special report. But with a 5-line statement posted to WWE.com at 11:43 a.m. WWE is aware of the unauthorized backstage incident involving Roman Reigns following Monday Night Raw. At this time, we are investigating the matter and will provide updates as they become available. Reigns is not currently scheduled for a match at Money in the Bank. WWE remains committed to the safety and security of our talent and staff. No mention of Shield 2.0. No confirmation of who was involved. Just a passive, neutered acknowledgement that something unauthorized happened. Which, of course, poured gasoline on the fire. Unauthorized? Everyone knew Roman had control. He wasn't sneaking around the building. He walked in through a loading dock and stood in front of a camera that had clearly been planted. This wasn't chaos. This was deliberate. WWE's statement wasn't damage control. It was optics. It was a corporate shell game: issue a bland press release, pretend it's an internal matter, and wait for the heat to blow over. But the fans weren't buying it. Because we've seen this movie before. The company plays clean up, while behind the scenes, the system gets rewritten. Except this time, it's not the writers doing the rewriting. It's Roman. And the fact that WWE didn't mention the names of the men standing next to him? That was intentional. Because they don't know who they're dealing with. Or worse, they do. But they're afraid to say it. Internally, whispers are swirling. Some insiders believe this is the start of a new long-term narrative direction being driven not from creative, but from a different level, possibly one with Roman's input baked into the structure itself. Think about it. Roman is no longer operating inside the storyline. He's reshaping it from above. He isn't a competitor. He's a destabilizer. And the WWE machine is scrambling to figure out how to sell that to sponsors, broadcast partners, and the audience. Without admitting they've lost the wheel. That's where the media spin kicks in. By framing this as an unauthorized incident, WWE gets to play the victim. They maintain plausible deniability. If things get out of hand, they can blame the rogue faction. If it works, they can pretend it was the plan all along. It's the oldest trick in wrestling PR: deny, delay, then own. But the fans have evolved. They know when something's off. They can tell when something wasn't in the script. And they can feel when something is real. And Roman Reigns felt real. Too real. The smirk. The poise. The unshakable control. That wasn't a man acting inside a promo. That was a man daring the company to challenge him. And so far? They haven't. There's been no internal suspension. No penalties. No storyline punishment. Nothing in the MITB graphics has changed. Reigns isn't removed from the narrative. He is the narrative. And now, WWE is stuck. They can't move forward without addressing him. But they can't frame him without giving him more power. So, they issued a statement so neutral, so sterile, that it became obvious they're afraid. Not of what he'll say next. But of what he'll take next. Because if Roman can hijack Raw without stepping into the ring, what's stopping him from hijacking the pay-per-view? What's stopping him from rewriting the outcome of MITB before a single ladder is climbed? And what happens if fans want that? Because here's the kicker. The media spin isn't just failing. It's backfiring. By refusing to name Shield 2.0, WWE has made them mythic. By avoiding details, they've made the story more compelling. By trying to downplay it, they've made it bigger. And now? It's too late to contain. Roman isn't part of the show anymore. He's hijacked the show's reality.